Under the warm glow of oil lamps in the wooden house, James and Diep sat at the dining table. The aroma of stewed meat soup mingled with their smiles, as their love was reaffirmed after he outwitted John's conspiracy with his cleverness and her trust. In episode 43, the explosive revelations of jealousy and hatred are unveiled, when warnings from Uncle Keen and John's sudden appearance threaten to separate Diep from James. Will he hold her hand tightly against the fierce waves of the past and simmering envy? Under the dim light, Diep and James sat inside the wooden house. Suddenly, a sharp knock broke the silence, interrupting both their thoughts. Diep looked up, her delicate eyebrows slightly furrowed, and in a soft, curious voice said, "Who could that be? It's so early." She set her bowl of rice on the table, rose, and her old rubber slippers creaked on the earthen floor as she walked to open the door. The faint outside light spilled in as the door opened, revealing the silhouette of Uncle Kian. A lean figure in a worn brown coat, his face lined with wrinkles under his silver hair. His serious eyes swept over her as he said in a deep tone, "Diep? Is Diep home?" Diep nodded, her eyes showing a hint of surprise yet remaining polite. In a gentle, breezy voice she replied, "I'm here, sir. Welcome. Come in, it's cold outside. Have a seat and warm up." Uncle Kien nodded and stepped in, leaving red dirt marks on the floor with his old rubber slippers. He looked around the humble house, his gaze lingering on James. In a firm but deep voice, he said, "Greetings, dear. Please have a seat. James, step outside so I can have a word with Diep." James stood up, his eyes a mix of curiosity and worry as he looked at Diep and responded in a deep tone, "Yes, sir, please speak freely with her. Diep, come outside." He stepped out into the yard, his old leather shoes softly clacking on the red earth. The cold breeze tugged at his jacket as he silently vowed amidst the rustling leaves in the garden. What does Uncle Kien want from Diep? Surely it's nothing trivial. He must be cautious. Uncle Kien sat on the swaying wooden chair in the corner of the house. The pale light seeping through the doorway highlighted the deep lines on his aged face, emphasizing his experienced, profound eyes. His grave voice filled the quiet space with a touch of sternness. "Diep, I have something to tell you. Stay away from James. He's not as good as you think. I have warned you many times. You might want to reconsider." Diep looked startled, her eyes flickering with confusion as she clasped her hands tightly on her lap, her voice trembling as she asked, "But why do you say that, sir? I think he's a good man. He's diligent and always helps others." Uncle Kian shook his head, his stern gaze piercing through her as he said, "You may see him as good, but many people do not think so. That's why I advise you to steer clear. James and his family are shrouded in mystery. Your father just left for abroad. Do you know why?" Diep lowered her head, her fingers tightening as her eyes searched the floor for answers, her voice soft and uncertain. "I heard it was because of work, but what are you saying, sir? I don't understand." Uncle Keen's tone hardened as he said, "No. There might be other issues that you don't know about. Our family is poor, and there are many other reasons you are not aware of. Stay away from him, and heed my advice." Diep's voice caught as tears welled up, thinking of James, and she whispered, "James and I are happy together. Why should we be apart? He hasn't done anything wrong." Uncle Kien stood up, his long shadow stretching across the floor as his stern voice rang out like a final warning. "Listen to me. If anything happens in the future, I won't be held responsible." With that, he turned and left through the door, his old slippers leaving faint red dirt marks behind. Diep sat back on the chair, her heart as heavy as a stone, her eyes lingering on the bouquet of roses that James had left the day before, silently vowing amidst the cold wind, "I trust him, but why does my heart feel so troubled?" A few miles away, at a small barber shop in Tanmin town, Min stepped in under the pale morning light. The weak sunlight filtering through the dusty window illuminated his gaunt face, highlighting eyes that held a hint of sorrow as he thought, "Diep is happy with James, and her smile beside him pains me. I must change and start anew to forget her." Clad in a worn brown coat, the frail figure of a street vendor now carried a newfound determination as he slowly walked across the uneven tiled floor. He sat down in an old swivel chair, its torn cushion exposing a yellow stuffing beneath. In a deep voice that resonated amidst the hum of the ceiling fan, he said, "Cut it short, please. I want a change. I need a new style." Later, James took Diep out of the wooden house, under the faint midday light, his hand gently holding hers. His tender gaze fell on her delicate face as he softly said, "Diep, come eat with me. I want to see you smile. I know you're upset about Uncle Keen." Diep looked up, her eyes bright yet touched with worry, and nodded, her heart warmed by his words, thinking, "He always knows when I'm down. He's so kind. They walked along the bumpy red dirt road, dust swirling around their feet, until they reached a street-side grilled spring roll shop in Kinman town. The enticing aroma of grilled meat wafted from the blazing coal oven, mingling with the sizzle of dripping fat. Diep laughed, her eyes sparkling as she looked at the skewers on the grill. "Spring rolls? I've never had them. They smell so good." James smiled broadly in the sun-kissed light on his face. "I often eat here. It's delicious. Try one. I'll roll it up for you." They sat at a worn wooden table, its surface marked by years of use, with the soft light from the canvas canopy illuminating their smiles. With practiced ease, James rolled a skewer of grilled meat with vermicelli, fresh greens and pork cake, handing it to her. "Dip it generously in the sauce. It tastes even better that way. Give it a try." Diep took it, dipped it into a bowl of glossy brown sauce, and bit into it, her eyes lighting up. "Delicious. Now you eat. I love it." Amid laughter and gentle conversation, as the breeze whispered through, James said, "Today, I'm happy because of you. How are you feeling after meeting Uncle Kian?" Diep smiled, a tinge of sorrow in her eyes. "I'm happy with you, but Uncle Kian's words were strange. He told me to stay away from you." "Please don't be upset." James nodded, his gaze gentle. "It's all right. I understand. It was just his worry for you. Let's just live well. Don't overthink it." Diep nodded, feeling a bit lighter with his reassurance. Afterwards, James took her to a nearby hair-washing shop. Under the glow of the ceiling light, as the attendant gently massaged shampoo into Diep's tangled hair, James waited with a bright smile, feeling joy as he thought, "I want her to look beautiful and be happy. She deserves all the good things." The hair washer softly massaged the shampoo into Diep's hair, and as the fragrant suds filled the air, she closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his care. Truly, she was lucky. James watched her and silently vowed, "Diep grows more beautiful every day, and I must protect her." After her hair was neatly washed and styled into soft, flowing locks, she smiled and said, "Thank you so much. I love it." James then escorted Diep to the red dirt path leading to her house. Under the gentle glow of the moonlight casting his rugged shadow on the uneven ground, he softly smiled and said, "I'm off now. I have a meeting with a partner. Please rest well. Did you enjoy today?" Diep nodded, her eyes shining. "Very much. Please be careful on your way home." He drove off in his car, the engine's hum fading into the distance, and Diep walked in, a trace of melancholy crossing her thoughts as she recalled Uncle Kian's warning. What was that all about? He's a good man, so why did Uncle Kian say to stay away? Suddenly she halted when she saw John, lying by the roadside. His face was bruised and his eyes half closed, his ragged clothes clinging to his dusty frame. She approached him, fear mingling with concern in her voice. "Are you all right? Why are you lying here?" John opened his eyes weakly, his voice barely a whisper as if about to fade. "May I have some water? I'm so cold." Diep bent down. Under the moonlight, his battered face looked strangely vulnerable. She helped him up and softly said, "Can you walk? Come to my house." Guiding him into the wooden house, where the soft glow of the oil lamp fell upon his bruised features, she poured water from an old aluminium kettle and offered it to him. "Drink." "What happened to you?" John sipped the water, his voice rough. "I was on a business trip far away. I got beaten up. They robbed me and left me here. I don't know what to do now." Diep nodded with a hint of compassion in her eyes as she looked at him, trembling, silently vowing no one should suffer like this. She rose and gently said, "Rest here. I'll make you some porridge. You need to eat something." She then escorted him to an old bamboo bed, the soft lamplight casting her caring silhouette as her heart filled with empathy and unease. At James's house in Kinman town, he sat in the small living room beneath the soft yellow glow of a wooden pendant lamp. The light fell on an old round wooden table where he, along with Hung and Tuan, were gathered. A table whose engraved rings told the story of the house through the years. James wore a dust-stained grey jacket from his days working on the farm, his strong hands resting on the table, his eyes calm as he looked at his younger brother Hung and assistant Tuan, feeling a hint of relief as he thought, "The workers are safe now, but John remains a threat, so I must be cautious." Hung, tall and dressed in a neatly pressed white shirt, sat opposite him, his eyes filled with worry as he looked at his older brother. Meanwhile, Tuan, a slim young man in a faded blue sweater, stood beside the table, holding a stack of papers. In a deep tone that resonated through the quiet space, he said, "Boss, the workers' wages have been fully paid. I've even added an extra 10 days as you instructed. They're safe now, thank you for keeping your word." James nodded, a spark of satisfaction in his eyes, replying in a deep tone. Very good, thank you. Tuan, you've worked hard. With the workers secure, I'm a bit relieved. Tuan smiled softly, his voice warm. It's nothing, boss. I know you endure a lot for them. Now they trust you even more. James then looked at Hung, his tone softening. Hung, what do you think? Hung hesitated, his silence hinting that he might be plotting something. Clearly, he wasn't entirely convinced. James acknowledged this with a nod, adding, he conceded this time, but it's not over yet. I still need to meet our partner Min this afternoon. The bridge project is promising, and I want to expedite things. Tuan interjected with curiosity. Boss, what about this project? Who is Min? James smiled gently. Min is our new partner. He wants to invest in a bridge to help the community. I'll discuss the details with him. Everything is going well, but we need more capital. Hung nodded. You handle the project. I'll manage the woodwork with Tuan. Focus on your partner meeting. James patted his younger brother's shoulder. His heart warmed. Thank you. With you two I feel at ease. He then stood up, leaving the house, to drive his shiny black Ford Raptor to a roadside tea house, where Min was waiting on an old green plastic chair. Min? A slender man in a freshly pressed brown jacket greeted him with a bright smile as he stepped in, his voice resonating warmly. Hello, James. Good to see you. I arrived a bit early. It's a pleasure to meet you. James sat down opposite him, his eyes friendly as he remarked, Hello, Min. It's good to see you. You seem so familiar. Have we met before? Min smiled softly, his voice warm. I feel the same, and I hope you're well. I heard from your secretary that you recently went through a rough patch. James nodded, his eyes carrying a trace of sorrow. I'm all right now. The company is back on track. Min, what do you think about the bridge project? It will greatly help the community. Min's eyes shone with determination as he said, I'm all in. I invest not for quick profit but because of a girl. A virtuous girl with no parents. I want to help the people. This project is wonderful. James smiled. The project involves building 20 bridges and a hydropower station, providing water for the fields and better transportation. The profit might not be high immediately, but in the long run it's beneficial. What do you think? Min nodded resolutely. I like it. I've traveled extensively and seen how people suffer from floods and the lack of proper bridges. I invest to ease their hardship. And that girl, she taught me that. James's eyes twinkled with curiosity. Who is she? Min smiled warmly. Her name is Diep, a poor but kind-hearted girl. I met her at the market. She changed me, inspiring me to dream bigger, even if she remains unaware of it. James's smile softened, a mixture of warmth and irony in his tone. Diep? What a beautiful name. Tell me more. Min's eyes lit up with genuine admiration. She's slight, often wears patched clothes, but her smile is breathtaking. She sells vegetables and bananas and works so hard. I want to help her, even if she doesn't know who I am. James nodded, his voice steady. She is indeed special. I too know of such a person. Investing for her sake is noble. This project needs someone like you. Min smiled. Thank you, James. I'm not after immediate profit. I just want to alleviate the people's suffering. How about the capital? James replied. I'll cover most of it, you contribute the rest, and the bridge can be named after you. How does that sound? At Diep's house, she was busy ladling porridge for John, but he had vanished. She sat at the table, her eyes heavy with sorrow as she recalled Uncle Kian's warning, stay away from James. Her heart was torn. She trusted him, yet felt an inexplicable sadness. When Diep faced warnings and as James was building a future with her, would their love overcome the new trials? Stay tuned for episode 44, where the doctor reveals that Diep is pregnant, a secret that threatens to tear them apart. Watch to discover the answer.
Tại khắc nghiệt, hành trình trong tập này sẽ mang đến câu trả lời đầy bất ngờ và dây dứt. Buổi sáng tại trang trại nhỏ, Diệp thức dậy sớm hơn thường lệ. Cô đứng bên khung cửa sổ cũ kỹ, nhìn ra khu vườn rau xanh mướt đầy dần nảy mầm, lòng chợt dần lên cảm giác bình yên hiếm hoi. Nhưng sự bình yên ấy nhanh chóng bị xáo trộn khi cô nhìn thấy dáng người đàn ông với nụ cười ấm áp đã làm trái tim cô rung động. Cô nhận ra mình yêu anh, không phải từ hôm qua mà từ rất lâu, có lẽ từ khoảnh khắc đứng trước cô, bảo vệ cô khỏi sự tàn nhẫn của bao những ngày khi cảm giác ngọt ngào ấy len lỏi trong vào lòng. Nỗi tự ti lại trỗi dậy như một con sóng dữ. Mình là ai mà dám yêu anh ấy? Một người phụ nữ nghèo khổ, từng bị chồng bỏ rơi, không cha không mẹ. Mình không xứng đáng. Cô tự nhủ, đôi mắt mờ đi vì